It's here, it's here. UFC 285 has finally arrived, and I'm going to start with my breakdown of the prelims with the main event breakdown or the main card breakdown coming tomorrow. Now, for the casuals of the sport, outside the main event, this does look like a pretty underwhelming card, but take it from me, this one is stacked from top to bottom, mostly. Now, this prelim card has some really good value here, so let's dig them out. As always, like and subscribe. It's really, really appreciated. Okay, first fight on the card. I'm picking Farid Basharat. These brothers are legit, and Blackshear lost to Chris Martinez, the human punch bag. Nothing else really needs to be said. If you know, you know. If you don't, you're going to see this on Saturday. Usually I'd go into a breakdown of how their stand-up compares and how the takedown game compares and how they match up. It's just not worth it. This is a lock. I think Basharat beats the tar out of him, ragdolls him, does whatever he's in the mood for. Enough said. Basharat for the win. Alright, next fight on the card is Jessica Penne versus Ricci. Did I say this card was stacked? Sheesh. Alright, I'm going to pick Tabitha Ricci. She's younger, she has better stand-up, she's got a better ground game. Her only loss in her career is against Manon Fiorot, who is pretty good, and that was by standing TKO. And, you know, Fiorot's going to be fighting for a belt soon. No shame in that loss. Penne has had like a series of cancelled bouts and has lost 4 in her last 6. She shouldn't be in the UFC. She's also been finished multiple times in her career, which, believe me, in women's MMA is quite an achievement. I think this will be her last fight, certainly in the promotion, and I expect Ricci to send Old Yeller out to the barn. I'm calling Ricci by sub. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. Mano Martinez, he's actually pretty good. He has losses to Draco Rodriguez and Ronnie Lawrence, which don't look great. But he's young, he's shown dramatic improvements since then. He's bounced back with a nice win. Now, Saiimon is the protege of Dricus du Plessis, who has a dangerous fight himself up the card. Saiimon had a really nice win in his UFC debut, which he took at short notice against Steven Kozlov. And that wasn't too long ago. But to be honest, this was a pretty nervy win. And he did demonstrate a really good ground game against a very accomplished grappler in Kozlov. And I think with a longer camp this time and a chance to game plan a little better, I think he'll look less nervy in this one. He's a young guy. He was making his UFC debut. You know, he did get the win, but it was pretty shaky for a while there. I was pretty nervous as somebody who picked him. So he's, like I said, he's only 22, so this win is not a given. But I expect him to get the job done against Mana here. I'm going to say it goes to a unanimous decision win. I'm going to say 30-27. I think Mana's going to have a few nice moments, but I think ultimately Saiimon is going to have the more impactful ones. And I think he looks great. I think he's young. I think he's hungry. And I think he gets this done. Unanimous decision. There's going to be some close moments, though. Okay, Ian Machado Garry, you embarrassment to all men out there. Now, all jokes aside about his marital situation, he's looked fantastic in the UFC so far. And for me, he ticks all the boxes for a number of reasons. He's got a really extensive amateur record, which is always a good sign for me. He takes good time off between fights, even wins. And he smartly uses it to go to established gyms and work on different aspects of his game. This is a man for me that clearly is all in and looking to do things the right way. His mic skills are cringy and he just needs to stop saying words in public. But to be fair, as a fighter, very, very good. I think the odds are a little too wide here, so I'm not going to be playing it. Kenan Son is not terrible, but he's coming off getting his head knocked off. And against a guy like Garry that can shut the lights out, I'm not loving this matchup for him. The UFC are clearly bedding in Garry very slowly and cautiously, and clearly want another marketable Irish fighter, so I think they're treading softly with him. I think Garry's going to remain cautious at first in this one, and then find a head kick at some point. I think he finishes the fight. I'm going to say in the second round, keep an eye out for this guy. He's young, he's dedicated to the game, and I think he marches on here. All right, this is a meaningless fight, but potentially a fun one. Now, Julian Marquez is most famous for calling out Miley Cyrus, who is not my cup of tea personally, and he actually managed to get a response before fumbling the bag like a total chode. He's coming off a brutal TKO loss, and while Barrialt hardly has dynamite in his hands, he's a scrappy, tough guy. He drags fights into later stages and is really good at getting decisions. I think Julian Marquez will be tentative after getting his bell rung in his last encounter, and I think he's going to be nervous to trade. I think this will play into Barrialt's hands, and I see him eking out a scrappy, rubbish, back and forth, 29-28, or 2 rounds to 1 for you casuals out there, with Marquez facing the exit door. Okay, a lot of people are picking Ribas here, and I do get why. She did look pretty good in her last fight against Chookagian, albeit a loss. It was a split loss. She has very decent hands, very decent output. She has had so many cancelled bouts over the last few years, though, and her high-profile wins have aged so damn poorly since then. I mean, she beat Paige Van Sant, who's a model. She's not a fighter. She sucks. Jandiroba was an alright win, but she got dusted by Mariana Rodriguez, who has since been found out herself. Araujo just lost to Grasso, who is fighting at the top of the card. She lost this in a pretty competitive decision, and that does mean something to me. Now, both these women are very evenly matched, and this is a coin toss for me. A very hard one to pick, but with a slight reach advantage and a slightly better ground game, in my opinion, I'm going to give the edge to Araujo. This goes to a decision, and I can see this being a contentious split. I see a split decision in this one. I just think Ribas has not really lived up to what looked like really great early potential. I'm calling Araujo by split for me, but do not bet on either one of them. I think if you're going to put money on this one, take the distance play. I see this going to decision one way or another. Alright, I've bet against Brunson so many times, and I've been left with egg on my face so many times. I picked Holland against him. I picked Till. What was I thinking? I know. And Brunson has probably been responsible for murdering more of my parlays than any man or woman on the roster. His stand-up game is fucking horrific, though. He basically wings shots like a 4th grader doing his best impression of a helicopter. And he seems to find success against men that have little grappling skill. Now, this is where this fight is won for me, because Plessis is so underrated in his grappling and jiu-jitsu game. If you saw any of his regional fights, you know, like, this guy has a great ground game, and I feel safe in picking him for that reason. Dricus does have a questionable gas tank and has shown tendencies to get too excited and blow his load going for a win, but I trust him here to stay patient and not fumble the bag. I think they're both going to start tentatively trading. I think Brunson's going to get caught. I think he decides he doesn't want any of that smoke and goes to shoot, at which point he kind of accidentally plays into Duplessis' wheelhouse, who snatches the neck and just strangles the shit out of him. This is a dangerous fight for Dricus, but if he's going to be a name in this division, this is a guy he needs to overcome, and I do think Brunson has earned enough respect now to not be overlooked as he has by previous opponents. I'm picking the South African to hurt him on the feet and finish it on the ground. Duplessis for the win for me. Oh lordy lord, Cody. The man with the paper mache chin. I'm seeing a landmine on the ground here, and I'm about to willingly step right on it, but to hell with it. Now, despite how dusty Cody's chin is, and how little faith I have in him, I think I'm going to pick him in this one. He was really brutally KO'd in his flyweight debut against Cara France in a really ill-advised move down. You don't drain yourself when you have a chin made of glass, you simpleton. He got beaten to a pulp by Font at bantamweight before that, who, to be fair, despite losing to Marlon Vera, Font's a very good contender. The troubling thing for me is that Cody never seems to learn from his mistakes. He gets drawn into firefights and ends up getting dusted. And Jones is not really one to do this with. You know, I think there is a clear path to victory here for him. And oddly enough, it's in the grappling. Garbrant has an extensive career at Team Alpha Male, who are notoriously a grappling gym. Now he's obviously moved on to different gyms since then, and whether he has the fight IQ to implement that game plan, I seriously doubt. But I'm going to take a chance. Now, as I mentioned, Jones does have KO power, and despite the fight against Valiev being overturned, he dusted him. Like, he was losing that fight, but managed to catch the chin, and that's a very good win. Cody as the favorite in this one is an absolute joke. You should absolutely not bet on this man. This should be an evens fight at best. If anything, Cody should probably be the underdog based on his last few performances. I do like his chances better back at bantamweight, and I'm picking him purely because this feels like his last chance now. It's basically do or die. I expect him to eat humble pie and take the path of least resistance if he's got any brain cells left. Either way, this should be a really fun fight, and even though I don't really care for him much, if I'm honest, I do hope he gets a win here. Call it my first sympathy pick of the year. I think I've got enough credit in the bank to take a risk on this one. Alright, thanks for tuning in for the prelims. I'll be back tomorrow with the main card breakdown, and I'll be chucking a few surprises in for that one. There is, again, a lot of value on that, and some really good fights on the main card, so I'm really looking forward to that. It's finally a real card to sink our teeth into. It's been a pretty shocking start to the year in that regard. So yeah, anyway, for those of you listening, have a great evening, and yeah, I'll catch you tomorrow for the main card.